Hello, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. It's Friday morning, and I am Chamberlain Oso.
It's easy to forget sometimes that it's Friday. Do I ever forget that? I'm going to say it's easy to forget that it's Friday, but can anyone ever forget that? Well, good morning and welcome. I'm Malcolm Yusuf.
Well, if you forget Malkwe, I won't forget. I rejoice on Friday mornings for good reasons. Good morning and welcome. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
Absolutely. And it's a different Friday, really. It's the Friday before a lot of things will happen. We'll get into that this morning. But you're welcome to the nation's commercial capital. I'm Kayode Okikiolu. Well, quite a number of things really playing out right now. The big one, the elections, naturally. We'll touch on that. But one of the big stories, which, I mean, is a reference I made to the Friday before, you know, the January 31st deadline for, you know, the new Naira notes to kick in, and then the old Naira notes become tissue paper, as a lawmaker called it. Yeah, that's what we're looking to. It's on Tuesday. But there's been lots of activities around that. In fact, it has touched on the nation's politics, to build up to next month's election. And at the National Assembly yesterday, well, there was this expectation for the CBN governor by the House of Representatives. The committee had been waiting in a room. There were representatives from banks, and they were waiting for the CBN governor, and he didn't show up. In fact, the speaker had spoken about some possible arrest warrant on the CBN governor to show up. Don't forget that this has been on since last year. In fact, he got a representative to show up for him and answer the questions because he was said to be out of the country on his annual vacation. So, I mean, a lot of people thought maybe that was done with because his representative came, questions were asked, she responded to them. It looked like everybody was going to move on. But it looks like the House really wants the CBN governor to appear before it for reasons concerning, of course, the new Naira notes and other issues. But it was quite interesting to hear the leader of the House also speak about the election, saying that nothing would affect the election. So you're wondering, the new Naira notes, the elections, how do they really meet up? But you know what? While that was going on, something big, something huge, as they say, was also happening on the CBN side. CBN with NIBS and other partners were launching this AfriGo, well, domestic card scheme, really. And a lot of you might be wondering, what is AfriGo again? What is this about? Well, it's expected to will I say, rival or become yet another option to the usual Visa, MasterCard, and all of that. So the CBN governor said this is not to stop the operations of all of those other cards. I mean, they will go on if you have those cards. Beautiful, keep using them. But just to create more options for Nigerians, AfriGo was launched. And I'm just thinking about the huge possibilities with this one. And by the way, this current CBN governor has come up with very interesting innovations, you would say, the e-Naira and a lot of other things, which a lot of people are still waiting to see how much uptake it will get from Nigerians. But with this AfriGo, I'm just thinking about the various possibilities, because one of the points he made was that when you use some of the other services, you have to pay, or at least they're charged in dollars because they're not domestic or local. By the way, local, someone has said, is not something bad. It just means it is our own. It doesn't mean inferior. So basically, those other options are not exactly local. So their charges are based on the dollar and all of that. But with this AfriGo, it looks like the charges will be in Naira, and I imagine that it will be lesser than others. It's still yet to be seen how it will be operationalized. But with the launch of AfriGo, I wonder, are you excited about it? Is that something you're looking forward to jump on once it is out there? Because it looks like this might be a thing not just for Nigeria, and that's the point again, but for the African continent. And who knows, maybe for the world. Bukola, do you have your AfriGo card?
Isn't it too early?
I know, I'm just pulling your legs.
And, you know, naturally some skepticism will be around the AfriGo up until it has been tested and trusted, you know. But picking up from the beginning, that seeming impasse between the CBN and the House of Representatives, or perhaps the National Assembly, you know, collectively, should be resolved as soon as possible, because there are so many, you know, uncertainties, grey areas around the new Naira notes that need to be clarified. The concern about the non-availability. Up until yesterday, a lot of our colleagues were still complaining that the ATMs were still dispensing old notes. And even when you spend the new notes, You know, some traders will give you old notes, you know, as change. The CBN needs to clarify how much exactly has been released into circulation and why the banks are still dispensing old notes if the CBN has released enough currencies into circulation. So all of those gray areas need to be clarified. Not forgetting as well, you know, the need for the CBN to clarify its position on the President's request for the restructuring of the ways and means advances. These are some of the issues that must be resolved. Speaking of Afrigo, I imagine that the same services available on the Naira, MasterCard, and the Visa card will be available for the Afrigo, i.e. Travel emergencies, luxury hotel services, concierge services, you know, which I gather are available on the Naira and Visa MasterCard. More importantly is the efficiency of the service. Even for the Naira MasterCard and the Visa MasterCard, we still have, you know, services returned as issuer switch inoperative. So as long as, you know, they can rival the services and in fact better the services of those other two that are already available, then we're good to go. It can't be said enough that we need to patronize whatever is Nigeria. Buy Nigeria, patronize homegrown services so that we can grow our economy. Chamberlain and Malkwe.
Well, there's very little left to add to that, Bookie. We'll look to see the coming days because apparently all that we're seeing looks like there's more to it. It's becoming a little political with the Naira notes. I mean, if I were to advise anyone now, I would say if you have the old Naira notes, just deposit it. Deposit as much as you can. Deposit all of it. I don't know. I don't have so much on me. I think I've deposited all of it. All I'm looking to get now are new Naira notes. And it looks like it's so difficult to get a hold of this new Naira. So we'll just wait until the deadline. And then afterwards, we'll imagine that banks will no longer have any excuse. They will now be forced to give us new Naira notes, no matter what happens. So if you want to go to an ATM, there will be no excuse in the world why an ATM machine should be dispensing old notes. And don't forget that we cannot withdraw more than 100,000 Naira or so per week. You can do about 20,000 Naira a day, but maximum a week is about...
For ATMs, right?
Yeah, I think it's about 100. But I think it was increased now. It's about 500,000 Naira or so.
Yeah.
Is that for corporates?
Individuals.
Individuals.
Corporates is 5 million.
It's 5 million Naira. So, and I think as they said, I mean, as the CBN governor said, you will fill lots of forms before you can get that amount of cash. You will need to really justify it. I don't know what anyone will need that amount of money for, to be honest.
Many do, I tell you. You
Timberlake,
mean 500,000 Naira or 5 million?
I know
which
that.
part?
I do know that, you know, a lot of some traders do still conduct their business in, you know, in a lot of cash. But let us hope and wait and pray that, you know, in all of these apps that we're seeing that banks have launched, you know, and even some tech companies are launching that, you know, some traders will catch on. There's been a lot of adverts in that regard. I'm hoping that, you know, that would also be seeping to the major markets and that people will be able to do business with something as simple as a transfer. But that being said, it's their money. If they want to be able to, you know, withdraw it in cash and they are willing to fill the uncountable forms, according to the CBN governor, by all means, do give it to them. As for the Afrigo, Bukola, I think you're spot on. It's going to be competitive. Let us see how it does in the market. We're optimistic. I think that the incentives there, where we're doing away with dollar charges on international transaction, I think it's only be charged on it's only be charged on international transactions, not local transactions. Hopefully, that will be incentive enough for the banks to take up this card and make it go as national as possible. They're hoping that it will be a card that Nigerians will be able to carry with pride. So let us wait and see. I mean, I usually am never particular about what sort of card I get from the bank, as long as it works and I'm able to do business with it. So let us wait and see how it eventually does. Emily?
Oh, dear. But, you know, two quick things. I think that people, when they get into certain positions, they need to just get with the program and see and understand that. Why do they because the way it comes across now, as if they want to make things very, 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 very difficult for regular people. I mean, you can be like, oh, you will fill thousands of forms, lots of people's own money. They're not thieves. There are several processes that they put in place. Okay, you're supposed to have BVN, don't we all? Aren't we all? But you know, just do a simple check. You'll see lots of people who are banking who don't have BVNs.
You have that?
Why is that the case?
Is that really possible?
Oh, yeah, it's possible. It's there. They've talked about it, that how come people are banking without BVN, that they will make sure that doesn't happen. Because it happened, and it's still going on. And then you now come up with this and say, oh, well, if you do it, the mindset of making things difficult for Nigerians, look, things are already difficult already. So if people want to do legit businesses with their money, why make it so incredibly difficult? The same thing when you want to do taxation. You open a little business here, you pay all your fees, you provide your gen, you provide your road, you provide your security, you provide your water, and before you know what's happening, they come clamp down on you. You have to pay this, you have to pay, as if you stole money that belongs to them or something. But look, you know, that's on the one hand, because we all deal with these things. Not that we don't like good policies, of course we do, but what's good for the goose should be good for the gander. No one should be seen to be above the law, because many elites like you and I, we know and we have seen that they get a slap on the wrist, easy peasy for a lot of them, and that should not be the case. The law should be equal. Everyone is equal in the sight of law. And about this card, we love good things. Yes, we want to. I mean, we've read pieces where the CBN says they will work with the banks on this one to make sure it works. But I'm just thinking, I asked myself, wait a minute. So this card, the reasons, look, they want to make sure charges happen, what, here? And no more bank or dollar charges for transactions originating from here, even though it's international or local. Is it that the banks cannot do these things? They can't come up with these cards and make sure it happens? Or what exactly? What am I missing? I might be missing something because I've not used those cards. Who knows for how long? And so if CBN is coming up with this card, as good as it is, they are supposed to be regulating these other chaps. So who's going to be regulating them? So will CBN come up with a bank tomorrow? And I don't know. I'm just thinking about some of these things, because it's about checks and balances. So if you're going to be a regulator, you should know there should be a line to all of these things. So, and which funds are they going to be putting in there anyway? Is this CBN's money, people's money, or what? Is CBN going to be retail banking too? Is this not tantamount to retail banking of sort?
Chairman, can we just celebrate this card first, then we'll ask the questions later?
No, I can't celebrate this thing just like that. People can celebrate all they want, but yeah, I mean, we can celebrate about basic questions, things have got to be asked, so that we just know what is happening, know what to expect. Because if they expect us all to toe certain line and obey certain rules, it should be all for everybody, and not just at anybody's whims and caprices. So, just thinking aloud.
Lots of questions,
might be ignorant about it, but these are just basic things. All right, so that's it. Let me start with New Telegraph today. Let's see. Oh, new bank notes. Reps threaten to arrest CBN governor, bank CEOs. That's a big one there. I think they say, after all, we've seen the MPC, CBN. He was there himself, so why is he not appearing before them? They might wonder. Look at the first of the riders. Aslawan Bajabiamila meets Buhari over deadline. I don't know if you've seen that piece where the president was saying there's no going back on this. That's what it's going to be. So that's the first of the riders.
That's a new banknote, right?
He says no going back. That video is all over the place now. Nigerians in dilemma. Fraudsters invade POS sites with fake currencies. How would you know which one is fake now? And then look at this. NLC calls for deadline extension. You know, that's the thing with all of this. Then you see, Governor Zulum orders emergency microfinance banks branches in Borno. Apex Bank vows to address new notes scarcity. What is this? Emergency microfinance bank branches. What? How is it going to function? Okay, well, I assume that these MFBs, the ones probably he's referring to here, will already have their licenses, because are they going to grant emergency licenses, or are they going to what? Build locations or makeshift locations. That's why you had to read this story and put it in context and see how this is expected to play out or what his thinking is, in case the headline don't do you that much justice. At the bottom strip, 2023 polls reject politicians with corrupt tendencies. Boy, that's New Telegraph, but look, guys, we're not seeing it, are we? Okay, well, that's New Telegraph this morning.
Well, Daily Trust is the paper that I have for you here this morning, and look at what they have. They're focusing on their 20th Daily Trust dialogue. So they had this conference yesterday, or this dialogue session yesterday, and the lead story is from there. Candidates blueprints cannot solve Nigeria's problems. That's according to the panelists. Looks like that's a summary of what they got at their dialogue yesterday. Two major parties lack ideological identity. That's attributed to Archbishop Emeritus of Abuja, Cardinal John Onayekon. That is on the front page. Manifestos, mere academic work. It's also a quote. There are more desperados than Democrats among candidates, attributed to Kabiru Yusuf.
Ouch.
We have full confidence in INEC. That's according to the United States. Yeah, so the ambassador was also there yesterday as well. That's the lead story on the front page of Daily Trust. And they also have the story on the banknotes. Banks short of new notes as ATMs dry up. Reps tackle commercial banks over new currency policy.
Let me see.
We are constrained by CBN guidelines. That's according to bank executives. Page 35 is where you find the details of that. I know that I did try to use an ATM last night just to, have some change, because there's no way you can operate, no matter how much you transfer. I mean, I do a lot of transactions via transfer, but you will still need some change. Otherwise, little people will suffer. You want to buy something at just 500 naira, are you going to transfer it? You want to buy, or you just want to give somebody a tip, at a restaurant.
Day to day.
What, you tell them to bring their bank? You still need cash, so by all means, I'm hoping that the ATMs will be flowing with cash very soon. There was no money into ATMs that I stopped at yesterday night.
I'll try again today. Maybe I'll record it and come and show
we can't be dealing with fuel scarcity and dealing with scarcity of currency. I've never heard it before.
You don't even have the money to go and buy the fuel.
Man. I just hope that something happens. There is an explanation for all of this. As I said, let us be patient, because we know that at the end of the day, from the 1st of February, according to the CBN governor, when he says there's no going back, we know that banks, there's no way a bank will give you an old note. It's not possible.
From the 1st, right?
From the 1st.
So what happens? We'll get there. We'll not get any money from our own money. We won't.
That's
unthinkable.
It can't even happen.
Will it happen across the country?
No, it can't happen. Chairman, let's not even go there. I refuse to contemplate it.
Because CBN has told us, look, reject old notes.
Yes.
So if you get that, there's nothing to reject.
What happens? That would not be funny. Look at this. Mafab adds Kano, Kaduna, Port Harcourt, Enugu to 5G network rollout plan. You'll find details somewhere inside the paper. We foiled 66 attempts to hack fake virtual meetings. That's according to the, people will certainly try. That's according to the federal government.
Of course they will. What do you expect? They
certainly will try. They want to get information as to what exactly is happening. And there's something really sad, dastardly, as a matter of fact, happened in Nasarawa yesterday. They have the figures for you here, and we're talking about human beings here. Death toll from Nasarawa bombing rises to 40. That's according to Governor Sule.
Well, I just think that, look, it's tough, but we know, even professionally, in different things, in different circles, mistakes do happen. But in the army, if it came from them, I think the honorable thing to have done is to reach out, first and foremost, probably to the chief executives of those states in question, probably if they have spoken to them, they won't be going on air and making certain statements, because you can't underestimate the extent of what they say, how people will internalize that. Because don't forget, persons who were affected would have been converging, certain messages would have been circulating. Now you'll be playing catch-up to ensure you try and put up the right information. And once you're playing catch-up, you're always in a bad situation when you're doing that. So if you had come up and spoken and said, listen, this is what happened, this was intentional, if it was an error, if it came from us, as opposed to them misunderstanding or misconstruing what transpired, and then reprisals, as I said yesterday, happened somewhere else, then we're dealing with a bigger problem. So these things have consequences. They have, even what you think you don't say anything because you want to damage control, you're already saying something, you're already doing something. Because actions and inactions, they have huge implications in communication, I reckon.
Well, let's leave it there for Daily Trust newspapers.
Well, The Guardian is next with this story on the deadline. And it's interesting the way The Guardian couches it. It says, stampede as Nigerians tackle CBN deadline on cash swap. Yeah, there's a host of riders, I must tell you, over 8 of them, and it goes from what transpired at the House of Representatives to the Afrigo launch to someone going to court. It's a host of stories, perhaps the biggest story in Nigeria right now. But what will also interest you is a picture beside those riders. It's also another big story. It is a picture that shows Nigerians queuing with jerry cans of different colors. I mean, that's one thing you're sure most households have. Maybe not, I mean, maybe the middle class, from the middle class down. In fact, I must say literally everyone should have a jerry can. And not because it's something we're proud of, but it's a situation we're in. At least you needed to buy fuel for your generating set and all of that. And you can see them all queued up right there. And what's also very interesting is most of these people are at the mercy of the filling station operators. I heard that in Abuja yesterday, something drastic happened and all of a sudden filling stations started selling. Is that the outcome of the committee set up by the president? Is it that the DSS is on the move again? Well, I mean, let us know your experience, especially in the nation's capital. But that's the situation of a lot of Nigerians today. And just this one under that picture, after 7 years, residents lament slow pace of cleanup. That's Ogoni related, yes. And you can see some pictures to that effect as well. And well, it's the Guardian's big picture. It's a story, another big story, I must say. The irony of Nigeria's oil-rich region. But let's leave it there for the Guardian.
And flip to leadership on Friday, but just before that, we can't talk enough about the fuel scarcity and the House of Reps trying to address the matter yesterday. What doesn't help the situation of Nigerians is this painful silence from the Minister of State for Petroleum and the Minister of Petroleum Resources, which happens to be Mr. President.
The committee, is that silent still?
Well, that's coming from the legislative arm of government. We'd like to hear something from the executive arm of government.
Well, the committee was set up by the president. It has, well, it's meant to have the DSS, the EFCC, and all other security agencies in it. So maybe that's some form of breaking the silence.
Breaking the silence.
But we need to see the change,
situation.
really. We need to see the effect of that out there.
Well, too many committees, Kadi. I wanted to add that, that bill in, the ongoing constitution review about how to summon the president.
Or governors.
Yeah, or governors, is significant at this point, and it should feature prominently in the coming administration. Indeed. To address issues like this. And from there, we're flipping to leadership on Friday. It leads with something very, very interesting. Politics is at the heart of the matter this morning, and this is how it is captioned. Atiku Tinubu returned to the trenches over alleged plot to scuttle election. It's a page 4 read, and the riders are very interesting. In fact, I'd like to shy away from one, but it's immediately related to the other, so there's no avoiding it. Stop getting high on your smoke, Asiwaju tells ex-VP. Count me out of your problem with PMB, Atiku replies. PDP asks DSS to grill Asiwaju on revolution, riots call. There's life after politics. I had to do a double check on the story to find out that both parties, well, the main the spokesperson of the presidential candidate of the ruling party is the one speaking here. You know, so there's a need to refrain from hate speeches and, you know, statements with such weighty implications, because there's life after politics. Well, the Reverend Father, Bishop Kuka, has said that Nigerians should not, you know, take such statements seriously. Recall that very significant meeting between both presidential candidates last year, in which, you know, there was nothing short of camaraderie between them.
You know what's even interesting?
Yeah.
Both of them have literally been together from way back. It's quite interesting. And I'm talking about way back. So when you see some of these things, you begin to wonder, really, I mean,
what's really
Nigerians
happening?
should be wiser now. And when I say way back, I mean way, way back, even before 1999. I mean, they've had political affiliation. So, hey, Nigerians should wise up and not get carried away by all of this.
Interesting. And there's this one at the bottom strip. Naira redesign, traders, businesses rejecting old notes. We said days ago it's illegal to reject what remains a legal tender up until the 31st of January 2023. And of course, we also need the CBN to clarify this planned extension for the currency swap. Does that end on the 31st as well, or is there a 90-day deadline?
A planned extension?
Yeah.
Where's that from?
From the CBN.
I didn't get that. The CBN has time and again said
we need
no going back on this. It's January 31st.
No, for the currency swap.
Yeah.
But the old notes stop being legal tenders on the 31st of January, and there's no going back on that one.
Yeah. So
but the currency swap that was spoken of, you know, when the CBN reiterated that there was no going back on the deadline.
Oh, I see.
We need clarification on that. When does that end? When does it begin, and when exactly does it end? I recall the CBN governor saying something about a 90-day.
I thought that was about the time given from the start, not
the start.
Afterwards. But
see why we need the clarification.
Well, I think it makes sense. But let's go to this Nigeria and let's see what this Nigeria has for you on the front page. And this is quite different from some of the trends. And this is what you see: 159 Nigerians renounce citizenship in 2022. 159, that's coming from the federal government, says that Japa syndrome fueling high passport demand. And that's a term that should actually be in a dictionary at this point because of the way it is being used. It's so common, a lot of people know what it means. But another one which a lot of Nigerians are hoping for is Jakpada, hoping that after this Jakpa trend, Nigeria will improve and the Jakpas will become Jakpada, as my boss said some days ago.
Is that possible after renouncing your citizenship?
No, not for the, you know what? Hey, I'm not going to foreclose that. And you see this one, 267 terrorists surrender as troops kill 157. Police confirmed 28 herdsmen, several cattle killed in Nasarawa bomb blast. So, well, it's been tagged a bomb blast now, but clearly still a lot to uncover with this one. Just finally, Naira redesign, but Abia threatens Emefiele with warrant of arrest. Yes, indeed, we touched on that one earlier, and you just wonder what's next. Well, there shouldn't be much activity today and on Monday, so Tuesday, which is a deadline at the National Assembly, we'll see what exactly is going to play out right there. Let's leave it there for this Nigeria. Well, that's it. A look at the dailies, but that's not it with the show. We're actually just getting started. There's a lot of politics in the air and what it means for you and for Nigeria at large. That's our next focus. Please stay with us.
All right, welcome back. We'll kick off with politics this morning, and it's about the Abia State governorship seat. Mascot Uzokalo joins us this morning. He is the governorship candidate of the Action People's Party, APP, in Abia State. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman. Good morning.
Good morning.
So how's the campaign going at the moment?
It's going well. I've had the opportunity to have got the whole 17 local government, 294 ABSEC wards, And I just started another tour of the 17 local governments.
All over again?
Yes. And
how many times do you plan to tour them?
Hopefully I will be able to finish up twice. So having a party that is quite new in the state, not new, but new to the people, it's important that I drive my message to the locals, because those are going to be the voters. So we've taken our time, we've gone around. There's no village in Abia State that I've not gone to. And so we're positive in the directions we're going.
Has there been any time in that campaign where you think, oh, what did I get myself into? But I'll keep going.
Of course, you wake up one day, you're so tired, you can't move, but you have a schedule, and you have a schedule to keep. And we fight to keep those schedules because the people are already expecting you.
It's quite interesting in Abia State at the moment. I know that the APC, the PDP, they've had... No, APC has had, I think they're still having their legal issues going back and forth about that. At the PDP, unfortunately, they've lost, their candidate just died, commission sent by the ways. Yes. And then, you know, you just wonder, does it make you think, ooh, suddenly you have a huge, chance, the door is open, but when you then think about Alex Oti, what does that do?
Well, Alex is not feared by anybody. He's an economist, I'm an economist, so I'm not afraid of Alex. We both of us were once in the APC, and we both left because of the things we foresaw in APC, and we moved on. He's in Labour, I'm in Action People's Party. So he's doing his campaign, I'm doing my campaign. But, you know, the odds does favor me because the Abian people want a younger person, more aggressive person, somebody who's different. And I fit the more profile of what Abia people are looking for.
But, you know, Abia people wanted, I mean, Dr. Otis said the same thing too, the Abia people wanted him.
That was 8 years ago.
Yeah, he said the same thing too at that time, and he was upbeat. He almost thought he was going to get it, that he was just having one hand on the entire thing, but we know what the situation is now. But in terms of, add to that, the question about the platform, because you would have, if you got the ticket on APC, you would have grabbed it. But then you are in APP now. So how important is getting a platform to push your message?
A platform does matter, but Abia is so polarized that the two big parties are not in play for the governorship. They have legal issues, they have candidacy issues. Like you said, rest in peace, the Professor Ikone. With this now, there's a new tussle. They have to present the candidate within the next 14 days by INEC guideline. They have so broken up. Can they come together to present one unified candidate? That we very much doubt. So Abia State will have a governor from a minority party.
Why do you doubt that? I mean, we saw it in Kogi, and they still won.
Well, we know the inside politics, what's going on within the PDP family. So we very much doubt that they can have a united front to have one candidate that will represent the interests of the entire PDP. No doubt, they still remain a strong party, but they are a broken party.
You're hoping to capitalize on that?
That's what any minority party will hope to capitalize on. They're the power in seats, so you'll be deceiving yourself not to recognize their powers. But that's what we are hoping on and capitalizing on, that they are not together, and that because of the infighting, it opens up room for a minority party to become the governor of the state.
Well, Abia does have quite a number of issues. I mean, I've been also monitoring some of the campaign messages of, you know, Mr. Alex Oti, even though you say nobody is afraid of him. Yes. But he does look like he's been making quite some inroads in terms of his campaign and his messaging to the people. Some people say that Abia has, you know, quite an interesting situation. There has been a rotation of leadership within the three senatorial zones, and they're hoping that right now to go back to, is it the northern region of
that is correct.
Are you also hoping to, are you banking on that?
Well, it's part of what we hope to have. I am the only front runner from the Abia North Senatorial District as it stands today. And it is the turn of the Abia North Senatorial District to present a governorship candidate. So
how strong are those type of sentiments?
They do become strong closer to the election because, especially for the northern section, we supported a southern governor. We supported a southern governor. Most of people from the north either voted for Alex Oti in 2015 or voted for Governor Igbazu. So we supported a southern governor, and we do believe that it's time for them to also support a northern governor. And like I said, I am the only front runner from the north.
So I'm looking at some of the messaging from some of the campaign messages that we've heard, and part of it is an intention to pay backlog of salaries and retirement benefits owed, different categories of workers. In some instances, we're hearing as many as 70. Some people allege that they've been owed as much as 70 months in retirement benefits. And someone look at Abia's, monthly allocation. It's well, I say a mid-range state. It's not exactly. It's not one of the states that's receiving the least. How do you hope to tackle some of the problems that Abia has with? I don't want to say with a debt problem, but owing workers in that manner, because the state government continues to deny it. They say they don't owe that much. But, I mean, he who feels it knows it. So how do you hope to tackle this sort of conundrum that, you might be inherited should you become governor?
Well, part of the message we pass to the people during our campaigns are we recognize the fact that people are old. Some people mention, like you said, 70. Some people say 40 for the pensioners. And then the salary earners are anywhere between 12 to 20 months. What I have promised them is that I will call their union, the various union, have an understanding with them, and draw up an agreement with them, given a time period, be it 12 months or 18 months, or whatever we feel is going to take based on what we find on ground. And that's with proper audit of what is actually owed. And then I agree with them how long it will take us to pay that amount. But our plan is from June, between June 25th and June 29th, to start paying current payments that are due. So that's the promise we've made to the pensioners and salary earners.
Between when?
That between the 25th of every month to the 29th of every month, their salaries will be paid.
Okay. Now, I also know that the current governor, in fairness to him, tried to market made in Nigeria, or made in Abia more specifically. And, he had a campaign going around different states and, different, depending on the forum, marketing made in Abia. And some people will say that Abia does have the potential, to rival any major market anywhere in the world. But that it's yet to really take off as it needs to. It's yet to really achieve that full potential that it has. What is going to be your own strategy to make sure that Abia gets the right of, the right of place that it really deserves when markets are mentioned?
Sure. The Made in Abia project, part of what we identify why it didn't really take off like it should take off is because the Abia people that are being trained for the Made in Abia were going to China, they were going to Turkey for training. But we feel because of the population of the people that need to be trained, those training centers should actually be in Abia. They should be in Abia. They should have also potential manufacturing companies for equipment also available. So we said we're going to change the modum of operandi. We're going to have the training centers in Abia. We're also going to have relative manufacturing companies from either China or Turkey present, willing to sign agreements with government that after training, whatever equipment the people need, the equipment can be given to them guaranteed by government, where they will pay gradually over a period of time to maximize the manufacturing. Abia has the ability to take over in shoe manufacturing. We have both comparative and competitive advantage on shoe manufacturing across probably the whole Africa. So it becomes a huge hub that we could actually become a global market for shoe production. But we need to have that training so that the precision, the products that are used, the standardization is there for us to be accepted in the global market.
No, don't you think that part of the reason why perhaps they're being trained abroad it's not just for them to get the training, but also to see how the environment operates.
Well, how many people can you do that? I mean, it costs, I think for me, it costs more. You send them, you pay plane tickets, you give them per diem to go over there. Are we trying to, yes, exposure is good, but what they need is the training and the precision. The more people that we have, the more people we have here, the more people we can train, the more people we can have production. There are Macy's, all these other companies, they produce their shoes in China, I mean, in India and other Asian countries. There's no reason why those shoes that you buy in Macy's and Target cannot be produced in Abia. There's absolutely no reason. We have the strongest and the biggest market.
You know, when you say that you plan to create 40,000 new private sector-driven jobs, have you done some analysis on this? How is that going to play out?
What we just talked about is part of the jobs that we're talking about, job creation. We have the Abia Palm and also the palm in Abia that are just lying fallow. Abia Palm is 6,000 hectares of land, 2,400 cultivated, not in use. As you know, palm oil is even more important than right now, or more in need than crude oil. So we have a lot of resources in between Umuahia all the way to Aruchuku. We have our rice farm, which is also not being in use. And we are talking about rice production. These are industries that were put in place many years ago that are just lying fallow. So we believe that we can, through a viable partnership, we can reactivate a lot of these industries, reactivate our shoe industry. And we believe we are being modest with the 40,000 jobs.
You think that can be more?
Yes. United Nations is expecting about 200 and something thousand for Abia to meet a level of potential. But we want to believe that let's benchmark it at 40,000. If we can do more, we'll do more. But I believe we can do more.
Well, at the moment, I mean, the health sector is taking a hit. Several doctors I spoke to just thought it's a huge disincentive for them. They're not looking forward to going to Abia State for the medical practice. So what is your thinking in that regard?
Well, a lot of things have gone wrong in the medical sector. Salaries are not being paid and things of that nature. A lot of the hospitals are not even being used. Our hope and dream is to bring in hospital management companies. We have some huge hospitals in Abia that could become an international standard hospital that are just not being used. So most people have moved their direction and hope into private hospitals. But we hope to create some type of insurance scheme supported by the public, and hopefully with that revive the economic system.
How do you mean supported by the public?
Well, let's give an example. If we have 2 million people in Abia and government is asking for 1,000 naira a month to go into the health sector, that's about 2 billion that comes in on a monthly basis. With this kind of money, we can revive the hospitals and put a proper management health system. We have promised to put minimum of 5 healthcare centers in every local government. Those healthcare centers will provide you the basic needs. And they'll also be in partnership, maybe like the USAID and the other foreign agencies that have medication and treatments that they want to offer for free. And if they don't have such places for them to come and do those things, you miss out on those things. So we'll have those healthcare centers within the local government. Our hope is to give the basic care, things like malaria medication, typhoid medication for free. And then you now pay for your childbirth or surgeries and things of that nature. And the healthcare system that we're going to put in place will help fund that.
Kaide, Buki.
Yes, thank you, Chamberlain. Good morning, Mr. Uzokalu. It's interesting that you say that no one's afraid, I hope I got it correctly, of the Labour Party governorship candidate, Mr. Alex Soti. But let's take a look at the politics and refer to the poll conducted sometime last year by ANAP, the organization that conducts polls. It puts Alex Soti in the lead of the one preferred to win the election, and you come somewhere in the 5th position. How do you intend to beat this result when Abians actually go to the polls?
Well, let me ask you a question. The poll that was taken, did they conduct my grand aunt who's in the village? Most voters in the rural areas are older people that don't have access to internet and things of that nature. So the polls that we do are usually basically Abians who are in Lagos and who are in Abuja. they don't take a full sample of entire Abia State people. There's no doubt that he's run for governor since 2015.
Kalu, do you have that information?
On some of these things,
that ANAP conducted.
Say again?
Do you have that information that those, subjected to the survey?
I do. I do.
Are Abians
I don't
in
have
Lagos,
it in front
not
of me.
Abians at home?
Well, I do have it. I do have it in front of me. I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but I did see it. Let me give you an example. I am the front runner in Abia North Senatorial District, and they had me at I think about 25% in Abia North sector. That doesn't make any sense. Anybody knows will tell you, Bende and Ohafi alone will vote me 100% because I'm their son. So that's why I said to you, the polls that were conducted were just sample polls from people who most likely internet survey. They did not take into consideration the older women, the younger people who are within the localities that do not have access to internet. Take that into consideration. And those are the people we are reaching.
Confident that you are the front runner now that the candidate of the PDP is out of the picture?
No, I'm not saying I'm the front runner because he's out of the picture. I said when we were talking about Abia North, which is the senatorial district that should produce the governor today, I am the front runner from Abia North. I am the front runner amongst collective Abia North candidates. I'm not saying because the demise of the PDP candidate that I am the front runner today. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying, as it relates to Abia North, I am today the front runner.
Well, it's interesting that you hold this position because you were once with the ruling party, the PDP, when you served under Governor Theodore Orji, which is why I want to ask this next question. How confident are you that your party, the AAC, will deliver Abia in the presidential election? The last election, Abia delivered to the PDP, and the election before that, Abia delivered to the PDP as well. So how will Abia, upturn that, AAC upturn that result?
My party is actually Action People's Party. I do have a candidate for president.
Action People's Party.
And at this point, I think that's who we plan on voting for, unless otherwise directed by the national, if there's any kind of either alliance reached at some point. So my party is Action People's Party. We plan to vote for the presidential candidate of our party.
All right. I mean, I listened to you previously talking about some of your plans made in Abia, which is going to be a big one for a lot of Nigerians, and especially the people in your state. You talked about the health scheme and all of that. But I just realized that you kept saying, we hope, or I hope. And you kept using that word, I hope too. And I recall this, this meeting that was held recently, that, the civil societies were saying, well, politicians make lots of promises. In fact, they promise you heaven and earth when they come into power. I mean, what they put on ground is a far cry from what they promise. And they were advocating that perhaps politicians should be taken to court, for promise and fail. Because they always say agreement is agreement, but it looks like once they get into power, they just, make sure that that agreement falls out. So would you be advocating or advising people, if you were to be voted in, to take you to court if you do not fulfill those promises? That's just on the side. I just wanted to bring that up before we go into other issues.
All right. Well, I use the word we hope because I need to become governor to be able to achieve the things that I've lined up to achieve. So that's why I use the word we hope. Well, the truth of the matter is that a lot of people come out and they say a lot of things when they're running for election. I have served as a chief of staff. I understand the system. I understand Abia. I understand the government. And the manifesto that I've rolled out, a manifesto that covers round-wide what the state and the people are expecting. I've also engaged the people while I was drafting manifesto. My manifesto is not one that was given to a consultant. It was done by me and my team in-house. When we started the 294 ward tour, we took into consideration some of the things the people voiced to us. So our manifesto is one that covers all the voice and the expectation of the people. So it wasn't one done by a consultant. So I can assure you, our goal will be to reach and accomplish the goals that we've set forth. And yes, if I do not meet my goal, the people are allowed to take me to court.
Can sue you. Okay, so, I mean, looking at your political trajectory, you actually know your state quite well. You've been at the corridor of power when your brother was governor, even closer when you were chief of staff, and of course you moved on to the APC, left for the APP, and basically you are that kind of politician, and they say has seen it all, literally, at least at that level, except the one you're aspiring for. And recently it was reported that you said that you would also fix the mistakes that your brother made. And I wonder, what are those mistakes you hope to fix, those mistakes made by your brother, the former governor of the state?
Yes. Just a point of correction. I wasn't chief of staff under my brother's administration. I was chief of staff under Governor Theodore.
No, I didn't say you were. I said you were then chief of staff. I didn't say you were under your brother. I mean, my colleague had alluded to that.
Okay. Okay, no problem. Well, my brother has been in the front run of politics for a long time, and you can't be in the front run without having stepped on toes and things of that nature. He can't claim that he's perfect. He's done some goods. I'm sure there are some people he's also wronged. So when I say that I'll correct the mistakes he made, I mean that if there are those who he has wronged and the mistakes he's made, as I go into government and it's brought forth to me, I will make corrections to them. So those are the things that I mean. I can't sit and tell you these are the things he's done wrong that I'm going to correct at this point in time. But I do know for a fact there's no way he would have been governor for 8 years. And he's just a perfect governor, would have wronged some people or done some things wrong. That's common nature. So I have put it in there. I've also said that I'll correct wrongs done by my former boss, Governor Theodore. So not only just the wrongs by my brother. And when I mean that, I mean personal wrongs and maybe policy wrongs that they may have taken. Like in my campaign, I identified one. In 2011, non-indigenes from Abia State were disengaged from service. And while Abia in 2002 had passed a non-indigene law that allows non-indigenes who were born or had lived in Abia for 10 years to be part of Abia, to be able to vie for any political position except for governorship of the state. So I identified that that was a wrong. And I've also put in my manifesto that we will put up a committee to review those disengagements, know where those people are, and see what we need to do about it. So things like that are things that I talk about that if I was done wrong by the previous administration, I will look at them, I will fix them, I'll correct them.
Does that include this administration?
Sure. Because government is a continuum.
What are you going to do as we wind down with power?
Power is a federal problem, but
the states can now, the Senate,
yes.
They're looking into. I mean, when we were in Kaduna, the governor told us, yes, he's even going ahead to build transmission output, and then they will transmit power as well.
The power is a federal problem. But I do know right now in Abia, geometrics is there in place, which has fully taken over 9 local government to supply power. Abia has an independent power plant, which is yet to take off. And I have also promised the remaining local government, remaining 8 local government, that if the power problems that they have continue, we will also look at a way to provide an independent power company to take over. As you know, generation has not been the issue. It's transmission has been the issue. So hopefully, if there are flexible laws that would allow states or companies to transmit on their own, those are welcome development. That will be a way of having. Aba really needs a 24-hour power generation to be able to function because there's a lot of manufacturing that can be done in Aba.
All right, Mascot Uzo Kalu, governorship candidate of the APP, thank you for coming on and all the best.
Thank you.
We will be back in a moment. Stay with us. All right, welcome back to Sunrise today. Well, talking about preparations for elections. We're joined now by Hafsatu Shinkafi, founder and executive director of I Am Change organization. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, you had an event yesterday about elections, trying to get across to stakeholders looking ahead for this particular election. So tell us, what is your, in terms of what's your key focus this time for the elections?
Our key focus for the elections, for the 2023 elections, is to have a stable elections, especially post-election stability. That is like the program we had yesterday. The theme and title of the program is Citizens Awareness and the role of stakeholders in the stability, in the post-election stability. So that's one of our key focus, and of course, pre-elections too, and the process itself.
But you seem, are you more interested in post-elections as opposed to pre?
Honestly, we're interested in the whole process, but you know, there's some projections, some scary projections about the post-election stability. So we try to raise awareness on that to voters and the stakeholders, you know, like media, the politicians, security, structures, you know, just to say this is how things should go, and you know, and to avoid incidences like, for instance, the U.S. incident or the Brazilian incident, where politicians have like a heated rhetoric and so on. So
what have you heard that, you know, you think that people need to be wary of?
An example is, you know, candidates coming out or parties just outrightly claiming to be the winners even before the elections, things like that. So, I mean, the winner, nobody knows the winner, right? So you see on social media, which is obviously a very heated space, you'd find like supporters already claiming victory and things like that, and different threats and so on, which is, it's normal in politics, but we just have to put out the awareness that, you know, you have to accept results and not cause trouble or make threats. Absolutely.
There are those who think that, you know, and only recently senior advocates of Nigeria started raising certain issues with the Constitution and in terms of the declaration of, you know, what will qualify a presidential candidate to have won an election. We used to think we knew it, but it looks like in this election, you know, they're asking for clarification. Is it something that you have heard as well? I mean, in your own circles, and is it something that you think needs urgent clarification?
Well, I feel like the electoral process is quite clear, but yes, I mean, it's a fairly new democracy, and we need as much clarification as is required by the citizens. I mean, like I said, just about how many electoral cycles. It's fairly new, so definitely more education, which is what we're trying to do as an organization and our partners, continuous education and raising of awareness in terms of this processes and practices. So definitely, I feel like it needs.
How is that sort of education? Because before now, we used to think that, you know, what a winner needed was majority votes and 25% of the vote in 2/3 of the federation, including the FCT. That was what we were told. I mean, that's what the Constitution says. But looks like there is now a need to clarify, because some people say that this elections look like they're going to be very different. This is more than a two-horse race. They are saying more than, you know, two major contenders on the front run. How does that change the dynamics of the elections with regards to previous elections, in your own estimation?
Right. Well, if there's any shortage in that count and what you just mentioned, those laws and the metrics for winning the elections, then definitely INEC would have to come in and obviously I don't want to mention what could happen, but that's for INEC to say. Definitely this for INEC to clarify.
And they'll have to start saying it early enough, shouldn't they?
Definitely, I think so. I think they should. And we've seen a commissioner made some statements which kind of backfired a little bit. And it's scary for us as citizens and people to hear this type of things like projections on reruns or issues like that. You know, it's quite disappointing. So we just have to cross that bridge when we get there, I think. For now, we have to just go out and vote. And hopefully the votes will be enough to avoid any sort of reruns or
You really think that we should avoid a rerun? I mean, a rerun could happen without any disruption. It could happen as a result of how the votes are counted. For instance, if two candidates or more satisfy, I mean, I want to imagine two candidates, satisfy what we think the constitutional requirements are, then they will have to go into a runoff to, you know, get a simple majority. That's what would necessitate that. Do you think that that could be a very tricky scenario for us to navigate?
I think so. I think so. That's why I'm saying if enough voters go out there and one candidate comes out with the majority vote, then there would be no need to have a rerun in that case. So we hope that there will be enough voters out there and to put on a majority candidate to win so that we avoid any of that. And if we do have the scenario that you mentioned now, then I hope INEC has put in place the measures to have one candidate come out on top.
Are you following the collection of voter cards? You've been encouraging people to go out to vote. The deadline is this weekend, January 29. What exactly is that? I don't know if you've been monitoring, but if you have, how would you assess how INEC has been distributing the permanent voter cards?
Right. So I believe that the extension was it's definitely a commendable effort by INEC, and I would say there's still room for improvement in terms of the distribution, but I believe from the numbers and statistics there's been some improvement from the last time, as the last elections, and throughout there's been continuous voters card registration and all those types of things. So I would say that there's an improvement, but still room for more improvement.
In what areas are you looking to see this improvement?
In what areas? For example, the data collection. There's a lot of duplicity, I understand. So, for example, like you would go and you lose your voter's card, you register again, and it's just cancelled. You just have a cancellation, then you can't find your voter's card at polling units and stuff like that. So,
do you think Nigerians are getting enough information, voter education messages from officials of INEC across board?
Yes. I believe that INEC is. You commend INEC for the efforts that they're putting out there, to be honest. And, you know, it's such a large country. Like, I'm not here to defend INEC or anything, but I feel like we should comment when there is need. And, for example, on the technological front of things, there's been an improvement from the card reader to the BVAS. Well, we're yet to see how that goes. But in terms of information, I think that they have all the digital platforms for young people, the largest demographic and largest number of potential voters in the country. So all this information is out there. And in terms of spreading and being on platforms like yours, I believe that they've done some of that as well.
So how much, what kind of impact would you say you've seen or gotten or like to see with I Am Change organizations' advocacy for these elections?
The impacts that I would like to see? Mm-hmm. I would like...
What's your target?
Our target, right, is just mainly the awareness to, you know, make citizens aware of how the electoral process is, and also like in terms of behavior as well, like conduct, basically, just the voters' conduct when voting, after your, and also, you know, for the post-elections, like I said, stability, having stability for post-elections.
So on election day, I mean, the dynamics are usually different. So do you think that we have any reason to be worried whatsoever on what happens on that day? For instance, I mean, lots of people, even INEC themselves, like to address what they refer to as the menace of vote buying, how people conduct themselves. If an electoral offense is committed, who picks up what? These are all factors that will determine what happens on the day.
Absolutely, and that's where the stakeholders coming. Like I said, at the program yesterday, we had the security, media, the politicians were represented as well as major stakeholders. And what you just said, it's really, it would have to be managed by the security and politicians, holding them accountable for such conduct and, you know, malpractices. So the security should have a framework where, you know, when you're caught with evidence and proof that you're vote buying or any sort of illegal activity, that you're held accountable and have.
So clearly, IMChange reaches out to security agencies as well. Do you?
Well, IMChange is not an electoral observer or any.
Yeah, we know. But
right.
in terms of advocacy, do you perchance reach out to them, because they have a huge role to play too?
They do, and like I said, we include them. We include them, and it's about an 8-year-old organization. So as far as reaching out to security, I mean, hopefully we'll get there and like hold them by their, you know.
So you want to take it one step at a time.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, Kaide, Buki, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chamberlain. Good morning, Ms. Hafsatu. I'd like to also follow up on Malkwe's concern about the constitutional requirement and to find out what your findings are from your advocacy, specifically as it has to do with the possibility of no clear winner at the first run of the exercise. You know, unlike other elections, it appears now that in the presidential elections for this year, we have about 4 front runners. Are you getting a sense of wariness, you know, from voters about the concern of going into another round of election, which could be taxing, you know, because of real concerns about security and all of that? And what counsel have you been offering, or will you offer through this medium, should a rerun be inevitable?
Right, so there's so much talk about a rerun, and like I just said to Chamberlain right now, there's no certainty that there will be a rerun, and I really don't know how much evidence or proof there is to this this projection of a rerun. So therefore, as an organization, and you know, the best outcome would be to have a majority winner, and hopefully we would have that. And the issue of reruns, I think, is heating up the polity a little bit. So I really don't want to dwell so much on that. But I mean, if that happens, like I said, I really hope that I'm sure that INEC will have frameworks to handle that situation. But as a advocate for voting and the electoral process, we would hope that that situation will not happen. And also, like I said, I really don't know where the strong projection for reruns are coming from. Is it from the political side? Is there an agenda, or what? I'm not sure. I can't speak on reruns, to be honest. I don't want that to happen.
Well, I'm sure the candidates also do not hope for a rerun. Let's talk about another part of the conversation as far as voting is concerned. I imagine that voters would need to know about, you know, overvoting. In the past Electoral Act, overvoting was a difference between the number of registered voters. When there were more voters than the number of registered voters. I hope I'm getting that correctly. But this time around, it's a comparison between the number of registered voters. So I'm wondering what it would, the possibility of overvoting because of the use of BVAS, which would check out the bimodal details of all voters. How significant is it for voters to know about overvoting, and how can it be avoided?
It's very significant for the voters to know, because it can be avoided by the registry. I believe that there's a set out number for each polling unit. And if you follow up, like we've been advocating for, and every democratic or electoral civil society focused body advocates for following your vote, ensuring that your vote counts, and knowing these type of details like the number of registries at each polling unit and all of that. So that is how you would ensure that there's no overvoting or any of those practices.
All right. You talked about the post-election stability, and I'd like to focus on that one. I mean, yes, there might be projections here and there. You'd expect that to happen, really, because it looks like we're on the verge of something quite different from what we've seen in the past. But when a winner emerges, I mean, that's the goal of elections, right? There's been this talk about the possibility of a unity government, because it's been described as a 4-horse race. Well, a lot of candidates will say it's an 18-horse race, but with the polls, it's been described as a 4-horse race. So is that something that you are maybe suggesting as well, perhaps to calm the nerves, to reduce the bad blood? Because it looks like all of the candidates and their supporters want to win. It's either a win or nothing else. So is that a possibility also to reduce post-election tension? And how much should we be also talking about a possible unity government? So at least perhaps there can be some sort of representation for all of the different candidates or horses in this case.
Oh, that's a very interesting and brilliant question. Thank you. So as far as the democratic system, having a coalition government would be a great development for our democracy. And if the parties do agree to come together in that situation, when we have sort of a tie or something like that in the elections, I think that would be a very good thing for our democratic system, and it will definitely make it grow and develop our democratic system. So, and then I believe that it will bring together the people and unite somewhat a divisive electoral cycle, electoral season that we're seeing. So if that happens, and the politicians and these leaders think that that might be a solution, and supporters also would see that as something that would be useful, I believe that it would be good for us. Yes.
Right, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but I know you're from a political family, so to speak. I mean, a lot of people might know your late father, the weight he pulled politically, at least in the Third Republic, the role he's played in government and all. And I mean, we've been at this for quite some time. Politics, people going to the polls, listening to promises and, voting for their leaders. And eventually things don't quite turn out the way they want it to turn. And I wonder for you, maybe because you have at least some sort of first-hand view of politics, maybe by association and all of that, is there really a reason as to why we keep going around in circles? The promises are made, but the politicians or the political leaders never really deliver on what is, I mean, minimum, really, what the people expect. Is there really a challenge here that you have identified and you're hoping that we can solve this time around?
Yes, absolutely. Speaking of my family and my great father that is late now, I've asked him a similar question before, and I said, what is the issue? Why is it that things are so difficult and we fail to get things right? And the simple question, a very simple and short answer that he gave was that, is the lack of democratic principles. Is as easy as that. So once we do follow the right principles, I believe that things would be better. Yes, and these are very universal principles in democracy. I feel like it's a very straightforward system, very simple. Simplicity is sorry to use this, but it's magical to use such a word. But that's the beauty of democracy. It's very simple and straightforward. And once you follow those principles, and fundamentals of democracy, I believe that things will go right.
So 8 years ago, what made you start this?
Right, it's just an inherent love and patriotism, I guess, that I have in me for the country. And also I came back after my university, which I did abroad, and then that was 2010. And to be honest, I was shocked by the by the reality that I met on ground. It was shocking. I believe that I was in some kind of bubble before, but after coming back, doing my NYSC, being very engaged in the current and public affairs, I just thought I had to.
What were those
do
realities?
Something. Well, it's just, I really don't want to be politically incorrect, but at the time, there was a lot of frustration, you know. Obviously, the major thing we have is this, you know, the system itself, the shortcomings of the system. That's whether it's the political system or the ruling system, you know. Also, in terms of the public and the society itself, you know, I'm from Zamfara and Sokoto State, and also just the poverty. And at the time, I mean, the insecurity issues had not even fully started. I mean, they were going on in full, but we were not aware of them publicly. But it started quite a long time ago. So, but just the poverty is just so alarming, and in terms of quality of leadership. So I just wanted to spread awareness on that and hopefully improve on it, yes.
So do you sometimes feel like you're making some impact, I mean, with the work that you're doing?
Yes, I believe so. I believe we're making an impact. Like in 2018, we had a leadership and mentoring program in Sokoto State through a grant that was achieved. And out of that program, there are about 3 beneficiaries that have gone on to run for party youth leadership, party positions, like youth leadership positions in parties. They've been active in the society. So I believe that that is one of the major success that I would claim. And apart from that as well, we do a lot of skills acquisitions, and we do a lot of educating. I believe that that's definitely is bound to help in making positive changes.
So that means I Am Change is here in the long run.
Absolutely. I hope so, definitely.
All right. So we hope to see a lot of things change, so that at least the relationships, the experiences of Nigerians, young people, women, children, everyone will be a lot better moving forward. So, which is part of why you started this in the first place.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for coming on. Hafsatu Shinkafi, founder and executive director, I Am Change organization. All the best in your
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. We will be back in just a moment here. Still talking politics anyways, so stay tuned.
Well, today is Judgment Day for the Osun Governorship Election Tribunal. I mean, that election took place on July the 16th, but about 6 months after, we're now about to get some sort of definitive judgment in the Oyetola versus Adeleke case. We have our correspondent live for you there, just to give you all of the updates on that one. Babajide Agbeyo is now standing by in Osun State to give us an update and a feel of what's going on and what to expect today. Babajide, what can you tell us about this big day?
Well, good morning, Coyote. Well, it's Judgment Day here at the Governorship Election Petitions Tribunal, sitting in Osogbo, the capital of Osun State. After the July 16th governorship election last year, in which the Independent National Electoral Commission declared Senator Ademola Adeleke of the People's Democratic Party as the winner of the election, Mr. Boyega Oyetola of the All Progressives Congress had dragged Adeleke to the tribunal to challenge the result. And what are the grounds? The Oyetola and the APC are claiming that Adeleke contested that election with forged academic credentials, and that there were cases of overvoting at more than 700 polling units in that election. So the case is before the table of the three-man tribunal, three wise men, if you like, and they will be doing justice to that this morning, 9 a.m. They told us. But keeping you updated with the situation around here, if you look at my side here, you'll see heavy presence of security operatives, policemen, civil defense officers, and some officers that are not in uniform. That's the gates of this tribunal sitting. And even before here, at the road leading to this location, the road had been cordoned off, apparently to ensure that there's no breakdown of law and order, whichever way the pendulum of the judgment swings today. And even at the opposite side of where I am now, you see people I believe to be, I wouldn't say observers, they should be those attached to one political party or the other. You know, two parties are involved in this, and you see expectation, you see curiosity, and even some tension, if you like. You see them in clusters discussing, and of course they must be talking about what will be the possible outcome of what they have come for here today. And we've been into the tribunal courtroom earlier, and I've seen some lawyers seated there, and a number of people also seated there. Some of them also should be those who are interested in this case in one way or the other. But the final say will be from the tribunal team, the three wise men, as I said earlier. But for us, we will always keep you updated with moments and happenings around here.
Clearly a big day, and all eyes are on that tribunal. We'll stay with you, Babajide, all through the day for a minute-by-minute update on what's going on at that elections petitions tribunal in Osogbo, the Osun State capital. Thank you so much. We'll stay with you during the course of the day. Well, that's it. Just another big story waiting to happen in the southwest part of Nigeria. But let's head over to Abuja now for the final leg of our conversation on the program. Chamberlain.
Well, yes, indeed. Now we've got Professor Shoaib Abdul-Rahim, who is the governorship candidate of the NNPP in Kwara State. He is a former Vice Chancellor of University of Ilorin and former Executive Chairman of the Federal Character Commission. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, you are in the governorship race with the NNPP. First of all, why did you decide to throw your hat in the ring at this time?
Thank you very much. By profession, a teacher, and I've taught at all levels. And I've always remained, like most Nigerians, in my shoes, virtually observers and watchers of the political scene, until I came to the realization that politics is too serious a business to be left to professional politicians alone. There's so much damage that's already been done to our country at every level. And if people of goodwill and who have the wherewithal to attempt a damage control, people like me should actually take an interest, and that's why I'm in politics.
I mean, you're former Vice Chancellor, former Executive Chairman, Federal Character Commission. You've heard people say that politics is dirty. So why did you still go in? Because you could risk losing perhaps your image, integrity.
If all clean people leave it to dirty people, we'll have a dirty nation of dirty people who will make dirty laws which will be obeyed by good people, whether they would like it or not. So if you are going to be a victim in that case, it's only appropriate that good people should also take an interest.
But why NNPP?
NNPP happens to be the party on which platform I intend to contest, because there is a reputation attached to that party, one from the leadership, and by perception of the profile of all persons there. You see, there's this anti-corruption crusade that has been on for Nigeria for a long time in Nigeria. And people of goodwill have always wished Nigeria were going to be governed by straight and upright people. All the parties that we know of that are in control of the political environment in Nigeria today have one thing or the other against them, and that's the stigma of corruption from top to bottom. And if people like me are going to get into politics, we must observe and watch which is the least area of debt that we want to pitch our tent in. And I'm glad to say that everybody from top to bottom in NNPP today are persons who have clean bill of health in terms of corruption. So if you begin by looking at the people who occupy the party, you find that Engineer Rabi Konkoso, the former minister and former governor, is about the only one among all the presidential candidates of note who is not being pursued around by one corruption agency or the other. And I think when I look at it down the line, including myself, I think that's a right and comfortable place to be.
But what makes you think that you have a chance at this? Because, I mean, the preceding parties there, they say they've got the leverage, they refer to the people who they have around them. What makes you think you have a chance at this?
I think it's a question of pedigree, a question of track record. I've been in the public service for quite some time. I've been in high places. And I think if I come into politics, the goodwill that I garnered from my previous experiences are going to stand me in good stead. And that's why I'm there. I have, I think, the confidence, especially of the majority of young people in Kwara State. They have been in my constituency for a long time.
Isn't this a little too late in the day? I mean, because you've said that you realize that politics is too serious a business to be left to, just anybody. But some people will say that, you've spent a good number of your years at the university. You've also had the privilege of going to the Federal Character Commission, where, I mean, I want to believe that you tried your best to make an impact. But, for a state like Kwara, they will need somebody much, much younger.
The issue of age, I think, is important in politics because age equates to experience. It equates to the opportunity to have seen where the damage has been done and gives you the advantage of going straight for repair work. So if I come into politics, as you say, at this late part of my life, my brain and my mind is not late or old. I think I have a very full grasp of what is happening around me. And I have the wherewithal to approach the problems from perspectives which I think would be beneficial to the majority of my followers, especially the people of Kwara State.
Oftentimes for older people, especially those whom God has blessed with good health, I do know that oftentimes there is a conflict between their perceived capacity and, even their own physical strength. I know that the president constantly is always wishing that he were younger. He wished he had taken on the problems of Nigeria, at an earlier time in his life. When you look at the problems, or when you look at the challenges that are, confronting the people of Kwara, do you think it's something that you will have the physical, because whether or not we like it, much as, mentally we might still be very capable and, have excellent cognitive abilities, sometimes physical strength is not exactly the same thing. And this kind of work could actually take their toll.
Mark, do I look like a frail person who cannot take part in physical activities? You see me walk into this studio, you see me sit down here. Will that be, in your own judgment, an impediment to my ambition? I think I'm going to work with my brains, not with my legs.
Very true. But what I'm saying, I mean, oftentimes people always expect that older people will take it easy. I have a father, he's much older, and there are things that, you simply say, take it easy, you're retired now. Why do you want to, go through all of this stress?
In old age, if you sit down in one corner, the world will get worse and worse, and you watch without being of any help to anybody. So if you have a chance, like I do have a chance, and a commitment to fixing things in my environment, I think it's going to be a disservice to the nation to deny that nation or that state of the things that I think I have that's worthwhile.
What do you think? I mean, because some people also argue that it is only recently that there has been an argument as to, you know, whether Kwara has changed trajectory or it hasn't changed trajectory. We know the politics of Kwara and, you know, how the now governor got into a position. He's running for a second term and is hoping to clinch it this time around. There are questions as to what precisely would you say that he's doing wrong? Because some people will say, oh, he seems to be getting some things right. What are you going to be arguing that he's doing wrong that you think will make a chance for you?
Well, those who feel it know it. I'm a Kwaran. I've lived in Kwara continuously without any considerable absence for at least 13 years straight. And I've been witnesses to governments and governors coming into authority in Kwara State. I'm not going to focus on any one particular one. I just want to look at the general mess that Kwara State has been thrown into by ineptitude, incompetence, and indeed corruption. So if I have a governor who is there now, by the means which you have just hinted at, I think it's only fair for me to do a second round of fight. We had primaries in 2018 when we were in APC, and the whole world knows the winner of the primary. But that's not the issue that I'm about now. It's whether the person who has actually got the ticket or has been given the ticket is actually living up to his bill. The generality of opinion in Kwara State is that we are not any better than we were 6, 7 years ago. In fact, if not worse. So if things are getting worse and people like me are around, and we had the opportunity to get into the action and make corrective measures, I think we are just in the right place. So to say whether the current governor is doing well or not doing well is left to the judgment of the people. But the preponderance of opinion is that Kwara is sinking under a debt burden, unprecedented debt burden, which I think is very unhealthy for us. I mean, there's nothing wrong with states taking loans, but unless you put such loans into productive enterprises, into instruments of growth and welfare for the people, you would have been doing all those things in vain. And that's the problem that we face in Kwara State, the misapplication of our resources.
I see that you have in your mission and vision, you talk about strategic action for change in Kwara.
Yeah.
And you largely focusing on the local governments. Quite a long list of what you want to achieve there, one of which is financial autonomy for local government.
Yeah.
You think you can? How do you plan to approach that, given the fact that we've seen cases and judgments and
I just want people to know ab initially that I'm not like the traditional politicians who wants to do everything in this period of 4 years. I think I'm sufficiently enlightened to know my capabilities and the kind of environment which I want to have. I'm not pretending to want to rule Nigeria. I'm only focusing on Kwara State, which I know very well. And I know the ailments of Kwara State, which I think we need to change. And when I say SAC, strategic action for changing Kwara, you see that I've listed among it. The first of them is education, education, and education. I've always said that people say it is expensive. Education is expensive. And I tell them, okay, try ignorance and see which one is more expensive. And that's the result of what we're having partially at the highest level in Kwara today. If you don't have education, what do you have? You cannot give. So I place a lot of premium on education, being myself a trained educationist, a trained teacher, and I know the value of education in determining many things in society. If you have a good education plan, you're prepared to have a literate, very well-educated state of young people, and with good education, you fight poverty, you fight disease, you fight ignorance, you fight even violence and extremism. Because it is ignorance that nurtures all of these evils. So if you begin by fixing the education sector, you would have gone a long way to preparing the future for the children. Look at, for instance, the number of out-of-school children that we have across the nation. In Kwara State, we have quite a substantial part of it. And if we use the investment or the resources of government to bring people up, we are only preparing them for the future, preparing the state for competition in the next century. So education is one of the entry points and the flagship of my administration. By the grace of God, I become governor. Well, but education will only lead to some other things. If you have education, you'll be able to appreciate that the source of the wealth of the people lies in agriculture mainly. And an educated agriculture community, farming community, either at the subsistence or industrial level, because better people, they produce what you call food sufficiency for the people if they are properly educated about what they are supposed to do. And if you have a very educated community, you'll be free from disease, the kind of things that kill children all the time. You'll focus on primary health care, and you'll be able to care for the aged as well.
So this education policy of yours, would that be like a long-term goal? Because, I mean, you have to be 4 years if anyone is elected, first instance.
Yeah, education will have to be a long-term plan, but you must have achievable deliverables within short periods. And I'm not talking about wanting to rule Kwara for 30 years. I'm looking at a short period of 4 years in which we inject new directions into the way we do things.
All right, let's go to Lagos. Kaide Abuki?
Well, thanks, Chamberlain. Prof, you know, talking about age reminded me of former President Olusegun Obasanjo, and how recently he's said to have scored a hat trick. It seems like he's, you know, going on and on with that strength. But I'd like you to respond to this point, which has been made severally, that with age also comes that tendency to always want to do things in a certain way. People set in their ways, people who are used to things being done in a certain way. And it's very difficult because, I mean, habits take a long time to be formed and even perhaps longer to be weaned off. So the question is this: how is it easy for you to balance that? Because I remember one of the presidential candidates saying one of the major problems of Nigeria is that we have analog leaders in a digital world for digital people. And we've seen that young people usually champion innovations and all of that. And it's been said that perhaps, you know, the older ones should play advisory roles and allow the younger ones to be at the forefront of innovations and, you know, transforming society. So are you that kind of person that, in spite of his age, isn't analog?
Thank you very much. I think we have a problem in Nigeria. There's this current phobia about age. And I think it's because we're indiscriminate, sufficiently indiscriminate about how we apply our thinking. That you have age on your side must be a plus for the nation and for the state. Well, we have been experiencing quite some hiccups in terms of disappointment by persons of age who have taken, who have taken a shot at the national level. I don't think we will be an exception. It is not only Nigeria that will have old people who are in charge of, who are taking a shot at governance. If you look at Europe and America, there are quite a number of old people who have been doing it. And I think what is important is the mental health. The physical health is also important. And I think whoever is unwell, mentally or physically, owes the nation a duty to just simply lay by and let younger people do it. But the thing is, younger people can also perform worse than older people. And let me tell you, if you look at the history of Nigeria, all those who have brought Nigeria to what we are now, at the time they were contested were actually young people who have become old now. So I think the idea of this hammering on age and the youth is, I think we need to rethink the way we think about our future. Nigeria has been brought to where it is today by young people. I'm not saying that young people have any fault, but I think you can find it. And where you can build, I think it's only on experience. if you have people with experience who have the capacity mentally and the physical wherewithal to be able to do it. After all, you're not going to go to a race course to do 100 meters dash. You only need to do that with the mental capacity that's available to you and the kind of exposure. And it's only people who have exposure that can actually fix the kind of problems that we have in Nigeria. If they are handicapped by health challenges, I think they owe it a duty to Nigeria to step aside. But I think we cannot apply it as a blanket thing that all old people should actually go and lay by and do nothing about what is going on. I think I am not the kind of old person that will actually stand by and see corruption eat completely the fabric of our society. And if I have an opportunity to lead, especially an anti-corruption crusade in Kwara State, I would have contributed something that is significant for people to remember and to build upon.
Professor Shaibu, you pride yourself as an educationist, and of course you are a former vice-chancellor. So I'm concerned about development this morning as far as the tertiary education is concerned. We've had more than a dozen strikes between the 90s and now, and last year was not an exception where students lost more than 8 months to the strike. What do you identify to be the problem of funding in the tertiary education sector? What recommendations would you be offering?
I believe that the problem is not in funding per se. It is the application of available funds. If you put people of character in charge of these things, you'll get things delivered. I recall in my days as Vice-Chancellor, we didn't have what you call TED Fund today. We had what we call ETF, Education Trust Fund. There is a funding arm of government to support education. But what ETF did at the time, if you have a project worth 100 million, ETF requires that you put on the table 40% of that, then the support with 60%. And that is the way you look at persons who have capacity to build. Most of what we got at the University of Illinois at the time were from IGR. We're not dependent on government. But I'm not saying that what we have now is wrong. ASU fought and won the battle to establish TED Fund. I was part of those negotiations. But the application and the persons who are supposed to drive the goals of TED Fund have not done well. Government has put a lot of money into TED Fund, but those who are going to expend these funds must be the kinds of person you check and see whether they are applying it very well or not. So funding of education, I think, is important, but actually management of what is available in terms of funding is also the responsibility of those who are put in charge of the universities. Yes, we've had strikes and the rest of them, but the strikes have actually, by my private thinking and understanding, been misguided in some ways. I think if the university lecturers focused on their welfare, that would be defendable. But if they begin to talk about government funding, I think that's going into the other territory. Yes, it is important to encourage government to spend money wisely. It's important to tap from the resources of the academic community to do wise implementation of policies. But I think it's not something that is sufficient for us to go on strike. I love to look at, for instance, if every professional decides to go on strike because there are no tools to work, Nigeria would have been grounded. I've not seen where doctors have gone on strike because there are not enough beds for patients in the hospital. Or engineers go on strike because the instruments for the construction are not available. Everybody goes along and tags along to make the best use of what is available. Nigeria cannot provide everything in terms of funding. But my vision and my view about this incessant strikes is we found ourselves in a kagwama, as I might say, boxed into a corner, both government and the unions, and it's time to come to a round table. And the way out, like I said at an earlier program, a national program, was to think of what we can call debt forgiveness. There's accumulation of debt, which the government is supposed to have owed to the academic staff community. And if Nigeria can get debt forgiveness under Okonjo-Iweala, I cannot see why we cannot reach a truce by saying, okay, what is past is past. But from now, you must sin no more. And I think we have an equitable approach to solving that kind of question. But if everybody dug into his own hole and say no surrender, no vanquish, it's only the children who are going to suffer.
Well, it does look like my colleague has opened the floodgates there with a question on ASUS strike and or whatnot. I'm just wondering, how seriously are you taking the polls conducted by ANAP? Because it doesn't seem to be showing you as one of the front runners for the polls in Kwara State.
Anybody can give itself any name and post to society that it has the answer to everything. I live in Kwara. My people live in Kwara. We know what is on ground. So we are not going to go by anybody's progression or whatever. I don't know what company you call it, but I think they are all boys that have been brought up to find some means of livelihood by that kind of activity.
Well, Prof, we have to thank you for coming on. Professor Shoaib Abdurrahim is the governorship candidate of NNPP for Kwara State Governorship seat. He's also former Vice Chancellor, University of Ilorin, and former Executive Chairman for the Federal Character Commission. And Prof, by the way, we love our senior citizens, so we wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. I'm not challenged by my age. I think the challenge is to perform. I must give credibility to old people.
Absolutely, Prof. So let's have this one or two before we wrap it up here. Olagunju, you say you saw a video of people being denied access to their shops because of PVC. It says constitutional rights quickly, it loses importance when perceived good, he says in quotes, good action starts infringing on people's civic rights. Constitutional education should also come along with voter education.
Yeah, well, much as people mean well and asking people to go and get their PVCs, you cannot force them to go and get their PVCs.
You cannot.
Festus Akimboyewa says the confidence in INEC to give Nigerians a credible and transparent 2023 elections is at its highest, which is testament to the new electoral law, use of technology, and hard work of INEC staff. All hands must be on deck to assist INEC to give us a credible election.
Indeed, and Oluwaseun Ojeyemi says the duration between first and second rerun ballot is 21 days. All security agencies must prepare and double their efforts from February the 25th till March the 25th to avoid any post-election violence.
If there's need for a rerun.
Well, whether or not there's need for a rerun, we don't want post-election violence.
Well, all fingers crossed, and we all will play our part. And hopefully this election should be very exciting for a lot of people, if not everybody, except, of course, there'll be one winner and several losers. So you know what I mean. Well, that is the show today. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you again next time. I'm Chamberlain, so have a good day.
Thank you. Have a splendid Friday. I'm Maope Yusuf.
Yes, make the weekend count. Get your PVC, but no one should force you to get your PVC. Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
I'm Kayode Okikiolu. Have a splendid weekend.